Hello, welcome to An Abundance Books. My name is Julia and thank you for coming to my TED Talk. I put on a blazer and I feel far too professional for talking about the best books that I read this year. Don't worry, we're still professionals here. This is a ranked list of my top 10 books of the year. There's some good stuff on here, but I will say I don't feel like I had anything particularly life-changing this year. For example, my favorite of last year was Under the Whispering Door by T.J. Klune, and before that it was Sadie by Courtney Summers. Both of these have like burned themselves into my soul, and I don't know if we quite got there with anything this year, but we still got some great stuff. I don't mean to undersell this, like this is a very good list. It's just, I kept waiting for the book of the year. And like I got it, but I'm rambling, let's just get into it. Although, we are immediately starting off with a problem because I couldn't decide my 10th book. I think I've decided now, but we've basically got a 5-way tie. Between Just Haven't Met You Yet by Sophie Cousens. This is an adorable rom-com women's fiction that I highly, highly recommend. The Golden Couple by Greer, Hendricks, and Pekkanen. This is a domestic thriller that was just so engaging and I had the best time ever reading it. I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jennette McCurdy, which is just such an excellent book that it feels wrong to not honor it. It's so pretentious, but yeah, like it's just such a quality book and I think about it all the time. Also, Bunny by Mona Awad. If you had told me at the beginning of the year that this would be one of my favorite books, then I wouldn't have believed you, but I'm so happy it was. It's a weird book, and so it couldn't quite crack the top 10. But what I think is my actual pick for 10th spot is The Charm Offensive by Allison Cochran, and you can tell because of the sheer quantity of tabs. At a certain point, I finished the tab block that I was working on, so the last like quarter has nothing, but this is just such an excellent book, perfectly made for me. It is about someone going on a bachelor type show and it's his perspective and also his lead producer. And do they make me fall in love? Yes, they do. But this features Parisa, who is Charlie's publicist, and she's my favorite character of all time. I'm obsessed with her, but this book is just so charming and so funny, and as a card-carrying member of Bachelor Nation, I loved all of the little nods in here. It definitely earns the 10th position. Then at number 9, we have one of the 2 nonfiction on this list, How to Be Perfect by Michael Schur. This is an introduction to philosophy, basically. I thought it was going to be much more comedic than it was, but it's super informational and the audiobook is fantastic. He narrates it with a group of the actors from The Good Place, and it's thought-provoking and funny, and I learned a lot from it. The thought experiment that I keep coming back to in this is if someone comes up to you and says, I'm gonna kill 5 people unless you pick which one of them, what is the correct moral answer to that question? He answers it in a way. There's no true answers in here, but it gets you thinking, and I'm very excited to continue on the philosophical journey. Number 8 is our other nonfiction. It is I'm Afraid of Men by Vivek. Shraya. I read this in January and haven't been able to stop thinking about it. It's the memoir of a trans femme Canadian, just talking about what living life is like, her relationship with men, how she views men pre-transition, post-transition, how she feels about members of her family. It's so fascinating and heartbreaking and says a lot of the things you don't know how to say in such an eloquent way, and I think that she's an incredible writer. And I read her follow-up as well, that it wasn't as good, but I think it contributes to my overall view of Vivek Shraya, and I cannot recommend this one highly enough. It's tiny, it's like 2 hours on audio, I want to say, so you have no excuse. Hard left turn now for number 7, like the hardest of left turns. I really should have organized this list better, because number 7 is Ice Planet Barbarians. This I picked up as a joke. Did I pick it up as a joke or because I love the new illustrated covers for these? And I ended up becoming obsessed with it. I think this is such a quality book, despite it basically being alien porn. This is just the story of these women who get kidnapped and are dropped off on this planet, and they have to learn to survive. This one is about Georgie and Bechtel. It's the first one in this series, so you get the introduction to all of the women and all of the aliens, and it has one of my favorite tropes in here where they can't communicate with each other, so they have to figure out how to communicate and learn each other's words and stuff, and I just think it's so charming and so funny and raunchy as all get out. And I feel like it really opened up an avenue of reading for me that I really appreciate. And I've pushed people to read this book whether they like to or not. I'm debating the order now. I'm looking at this stack and I'm wondering if I should switch a couple things. Okay, we're switching it. Game time changes. It's a lot. In the number 6 spot, we have Dial A for Aunties by Jessica Sutanto. I absolutely love this book. This is a comedy thriller fiction about this woman who accidentally kills her blind date, and then her aunties have to help cover it up while they're also running a wedding. It is probably the most stressed I've ever been in a book. Like, the end of every chapter, they're about to get caught. Some new disaster has happened, but it's so charming, and the way all of the aunties relate to each other, and I think that this is nearly a perfect book, and I had the best time reading it. It's the perfect mix of like a little bit of romance stuff with a little bit of mystery stuff with a lot of fun and compelling characters. I wasn't going to pick this up originally because the cover really turned me off, but I highly recommend it, and I haven't read the second one yet, but I'm dying to. Now, number 5 is Books of Blood by Clive Barker, which is absolutely shocking to me. As you may know on this channel, my friend purchased this book for me as a joke because Goodreads kept recommending it to me, and I could read anything. A romance, a thriller, didn't matter. It would say, you might like Books of Blood. And turns out Goodreads was right. I didn't really like Books of Blood. I only ended up reading the first volume, which is a collection of 6 short stories, and I thought that they were so excellent. Some definitely appealed to me more than others, but I just thought that the writing in here was so incredible. Like, it's my perfect level of descriptive but not overly descriptive, and I just think that this was so much fun. There's some stories in here that I think about all the time. Sex, Death, and Starshine particularly I love, and The Yattering and Jack is about a demon and the man that he has been assigned to haunt, and it's just so charming, and I've only read the beginning of it, but I can't wait to finish it and hopefully call Clive Barker a new favorite author. Now, the number 4 spot will be a thrill for basically everybody in my life, and I didn't believe that we would get here, but we did. It's The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson. There's just something about this book that you cannot deny how good it is. It is just perfectly plotted, slowly paced, but in a way that makes sense for it. And of course the magic system is fully fleshed out, but the characters are so interesting, and I love the way that our main character Vin has all of these little moments with everybody in the crew so that you get to know them better. And this book is especially good for its setup for the next ones. Like, I'm in this world, I can see all of the avenues we can go down. There's little hints somewhere that I know are going to pay off. Like, I have full faith in Brandon Sanderson that this is going to be something amazing. It's also a heist novel where enough of the heist goes right and enough of it goes wrong. You know, that's a hard balance in a heist book, but I just think that this is so fun, so atmospheric. Highly recommend the graphic audio if you're interested in this. It's a full cast, sound effects, music, the whole 9 yards. It really enhanced the story for me, and I'm so excited to read the next one. The 3rd best book that I read this year is Sign Here by Claudia Lux. Now, this is a messy book. It is not the sheer quality that The Final Empire is. It's messy. I describe it as a Douglas Adams novel and a Celeste Ng novel that you splice together chapter by chapter. Like, they don't mesh until the very end, and even then, like, sure. It's about this demon in hell that is trying to get a full set of a family by having them all sign away their souls, basically. So you're following Peyote Trip is his name, in hell, doing the hell things, having such amazing hell world building that I'm just obsessed with. It's so funny, but it makes so much sense. Hell has levels, and the only thing you can drink is a warm Jaeger bomb. The mind truly boggles at how amazing Claudia Lux is. But then you've also got basically a Celeste novel, like just a family drama about this family going on vacation, and you're waiting to see which one sucks the most and who's gonna sell their soul. And I say this all the time, I know that a book is perfect for me when I fully acknowledge its flaws and still have no issues with putting it on my favorites list. I think that this is such a fun book. It's everything that I wanted it to be. It actually lived up to its own premise, which is so rare for a hell related book. It's funny because The Gathering and Jack has a very similar plot and vibe to Sign Here. So I think I'm just a creature of habit, but like that's a trope that I love so much that I'm so happy to see it done right. And this is a debut from Claudia Lutz, so I can't wait to see what they do next. And now we've come to the top two. The second best book that I read this year was Everything I Never Told You by Celeste. Now this was #1 for a very long time. This I was so sure was going to be the top because I think that it's just such an incredible story. I loved it even more than Celeste's Little Fires Everywhere. I think that it's heartbreaking, but beautiful. It's about this family where the eldest daughter has died, and you go back in time to figure out what led the family to this moment, all of the things that they never told each other. And I just think it's so beautiful. The writing is amazing. This family of 5, you really get to know all of them and understand where they're coming from, even if you don't like it. It's about the way that parents and children relate to each other and the things that parents think you don't pick up on or kids think that parents don't understand. And I just think that it's a very sad story. I definitely cried in this one. Did I cry in any of the others? Haven't met you yet in Charmeth, and so I definitely cried, but I don't think anything else. But yeah, this had me sobbing, and I think that this is a perfect case of reading the book at the right time, and I love it a lot. Which brings us to our #1 book of the year, Comfort Me with Apples by Catherynne and Valente. Now here's the problem. This is an itty bitty horror novel and I can't tell you anything about it. I made a whole dedicated video for this with spoilers, and the spoilers are why I love this, why this connects with me specifically. But it seems like everyone who reads this enjoys it, whether or not they're coming from the same perspective as me, that this is just a really quality book. I always come back to the line, she is a full glass submerged in water, neither or both full and empty. I love that. Like, I'm not a Morgenstern girly, like that's the kind of writing that I love, that just, it sticks with me all the time. Like, I'll look at a glass and I'll think about that line. I think, of course, there's a twist in here that I did not see coming, and that definitely contributed to my excitement and enthusiasm for this book, but I think it's just such a quality story. Sorry, I can't tell you anymore. All right, those are the 10 plus 4 honorable mentions books that I read in 2022. I'm really happy with this stack. This feels like a good representation of me. A couple of horror, some thriller, some romance, got a fantasy on here that never happens. Maybe I am evolving as a human. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope that you enjoyed. Let me know if any of my favorites ended up being your favorites, if any of my favorites ended up being your least favorite. We've got one more 2022 video coming where we talk about stats. I think that's the end of 2022. So then we can move on to 2023, bigger and better things. Thank you so much, and I will see you very soon.